an application for a variance submitted by Kenneth J. and Carrie Ann Woods. And if that's not why you're here, you're in the wrong place. All right, so one of the first items of business before I turn the microphone over to you is to identify who on the board. And we have 7 members of the board, and only 5 are permitted to vote. So by agreement a few moments ago, the voting members will be myself, Frank Anzalone, Heidi Lauritsen, Steve Root. Well, let's see, we've got to make sure Steve is coming. I spoke to him today. He said he'd be here. Not sure what I should do in this instance, but we have...
You don't, he's on the sidewalk.
Steven! He coming? He's coming. Yeah, Steve Root, he's coming.
But if you had to do that again, you could leave his seat vacant because you have enough for a quorum.
He should know that he should know that he's voting, yeah.
Yep.
And then Peter, and our alternates will be Conrad and Lauren. Now, just for the record, you may not have been one of these meetings before, but the alternates, good evening, Steve. You are a voting member of the contingent tonight. The alternate members are permitted to freely carry on in the discussion of all of the merits of the matter. They can ask questions and they can put forth their own theories and observations, but they are not permitted to vote when we finally take a vote if we get to that point. So without any other ado...
Sorry to interrupt you, Michael, but did you appoint 2 alternates? We only need 1.
Well, okay, so...
Ann is the only voting member.
Ann is the only voting member who's absent. So between Conrad and Lauren, which of you would like to serve as an alternate? The other one of you gets a free ride.
Well, not necessarily. You could have to fill in for someone down the road.
Understood, understood. But for the purpose of tonight's hearing, the alternate can participate, but only one of the 2 alternates can participate in the discussion. The other one cannot. So, who wants to be the participating member? Lauren will be the participating member. Conrad gets the free ride. Okay. Now, the purpose of variance is kind of a pressure safety valve in the zoning ordinance. It allows a departure from the printed ordinance, provided 5 criteria are met. And those criteria are now promulgated in the statutes. And they were on the application that you completed when you submitted this. It is your burden to produce evidence in the course of your presentation sufficient to sustain a finding. It's a preponderance of the evidence. It's a very light test. It's just enough evidence to weight the scale. Sufficient to sustain a finding on all 5 of the criteria. And then and only then will we evaluate that and then vote accordingly. But the burden is yours. It's not our job to find the answer for you. You have to put forth the effort to present to us this evidence. So if there are no other questions or observations from the board or anything else I forgot to do, then I'm going to invite you to come to the microphone. And these things are kind of hokey. There's a little round button down here. You push that, and when this turns green, you're on the air. And this is being recorded so that it can be properly transcribed to protect us all. So please make sure that the microphone is engaged. Feel free to move it all around anywhere you need to so that you're not all hunched over when you're making your presentation. And I would invite you to come and introduce yourselves. And then following your presentation, or maybe during the presentation, board members that are participating in the discussion will have questions for you. They may just interrupt you and ask those questions. And then once we've entertained your presentation, we have our questions answered. We will invite comment from the the gallery. You will introduce yourselves and just come to the microphone, make your comments. And then we will shut off the exchange and we will enter into discussion among the board members about the merits of the application. And the results can be approve with conditions, deny, continue to date certain, or take the matter under advisement and issue a written decision within 30 days. Those are the choices. All right, so with that, I will invite you to step forward and introduce yourself, and away we go.
So Ken and Carrie Woods, been at 232 Old Main 6, going on 7 years maybe, come springtime. Those of you that are familiar with Old Main, it's old, and all the lots are really a bit dated, and the lot sizes and layouts precede a lot of the current zoning statutes. So a lot of the structures are currently non-conforming to current zoning laws.
Yeah,
and restrictions.
for the record, your lot is 1.7 acres?
Yes.
And in the ARR zone, it's 2-acre minimum. But so it is, you're absolutely right, it is a substandard, technically non-conforming lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, 4. Keeps, yep. So if you had a chance to read through the request here, so we're seeking a variance from provisions of Article 2, Section 18B and Article 2, Section 18E3 for the zoning ordinance to permit construction of a detached accessory dwelling unit joined to the rear of our existing detached garage. And we're also seeking variance from Article 2, Section 18B, definition of an ADU. It's a residential living unit within or attached to a single-family dwelling. In addition, where the new construction, I wasn't sure about this one, so the new construction would meet the setbacks requirements, but it would be a modification to an existing structure that does not meet the current setback requirements. So I wasn't quite sure if that applied or not.
We talked about that, actually. If we get to the question of detached versus non-detached, and we get to the point where it's detached and it's all approved, then I believe, I think Adam and I had a discussion about that. So the addition to the existing non-conforming garage, which is 35 feet from the road, and in fact it should be 50.
Yep.
The modifications to said structure are going to occur in the proper distance from the road.
Correct.
So it does not make the structure more non-conforming,
Okay.
because nothing is being built closer to the road. What you get is a bigger non-conforming structure, but it's not more non-conforming than it was originally. I think that's what the analysis that we came up with. So if we get to that point, that's how we're going to interpret that
Okay,
one.
nice, thank you. You know, it's well known that affordable housing in this area is very challenging to come by, and you know, the zoning ordinance clearly states the purpose and intent of an accessory dwelling unit is to address the need and desire for more diverse, independent, and affordable housing. These units will improve the inventory of smaller housing without significantly altering the rural character of the community. And I think that's kind of really the spirit of the zoning board ordinance. You know, we fully understand the reservations that, you know, obviously the vote that happened at the town meeting, where there were proposed changes to the ADU. You know, a lot of the residents spoke to that. And it was an addition of a detached ADU and an increase of the footprint for the size of the ADUs that was on the ballot, right, that was denied. So,
Present limit is 1,000 square feet, or is it 1,200?
Correct.
1,000?
1,000.
Yeah, and that would be the living space, would it not?
Correct.
So the square footage of the garage space would not be added to the value of the ADU that you're proposing.
Correct.
The new construction would be 1,000 square feet of living space,
Correct.
limited to 1,000 square feet.
Yes. Yep. You know, the principal dwelling at 232 Old Main was built in 1940 with a later addition that pretty much used all the available footprint given the unique topology of the lot there. If you look at the pictures, it was built close to the road because it slopes off very steeply in the back, and it's pretty much surrounded by ledge, just right on the ridge there. You know, the field across the road has ledge poking out of it. So it really limits what we could do to attach it to the house. There's really no spot geographically that would allow us to attach it there. If you could just pull up the diagram real quick, go back to, yeah. So this was from the property map. There's the the main house there. The garage is not shown. I had to put it in. It's the blue square. The blue square. And it has an existing driveway. The house, the leach field, is set off to the side. There's ledge in front of it and ledge behind it. And what we would be proposing is to add the ADU behind the existing garage, and then put a new septic down below that to service the ADU. And water would be supplied from the town. There's a fire hydrant right outside there, right at the end of the driveway.
I'm going to interrupt you. At the end of the day, in your opinion, will what you're doing fundamentally change the character of the neighborhood?
No. No. And in a lot of ways, I think this proposal would be more in spirit with the character of the neighborhood. Adding yet another, the house has evolved since 1940 and has kind of grown. Trying to add something attached to the house to either make it longer, I think, would be more obtrusive in the neighborhood than something that is tucked away behind the garage, in my opinion.
Okay.
And I think that gets to, that's kind of, the character of the neighborhood, okay. So should we move on to the 5 criteria?
Wow, we need to hear that. We need to hear one on every item, or we
Yep.
can't approve it.
Yep. Any questions so far?
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So, in the ARR zone with the 50-foot setback, wouldn't, if you tried to build on that ledge to the side of the house, you'd be within the setback? In other words,
Right.
you need a variance to do that
Yes.
anyway?
Yes.
Okay, so is the house in part already built on that ledge? The one behind?
E-
Look at the back, if you show that picture, yes.
Yeah.
If you check that picture, see that rock? It goes
Yeah.
right underneath. We have no basement, so.
Okay.
Yeah, with pretty limited crawl space for,
You have no basement, or no basement back there?
we have a small utility
We have
room.
small utilities.
Okay, so, do you know whether your foundation is pinned to the ledge?
That I do not know.
Because I'm asking because I have a little experience with ledge, I have a lot of experience with ledge. And if your foundation is pinned to the ledge, you don't want to pound on the ledge or do anything because
Exactly.
that can damage the house.
Yeah.
Which may be a reason that you can't build. But you can pound out ledge. Your neighbors don't like it, but because it takes a long time. But it's not impossible to build on ledge, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, let's hear the analysis.
I have one question.
Yeah,
The topography of the land over there, that drops off very steeply
Yes.
behind that, doesn't it?
yes,
Like
it does very
precipitously.
steeply.
Okay.
If you look at the picture of the deck out back,
Yeah,
that's pretty,
pretty much the way
Yeah.
it is behind the garage.
That's quite a drop. It's not like, let the grandchildren dangle there. It's not like a nice gentle slope, let's go out and sled. It's a drop and then. you
Yeah,
go
off the
down.
back of the deck, it's probably, not 15 feet, I would say, thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the oil guy, we make sure he's careful.
Yeah.
Take it down until the gas tanks. It goes right down on the ledge there.
Do you know where, does the slope continue downhill from there?
Yeah, it's pretty much a constant slope all the way down to, I don't think I have a picture of the backyard, but there's another piece of big ledge down below before it flattens out into the field down below.
Yeah. Do you know whether it would be considered a steep slope under our zoning ordinance?
I don't know.
Yeah, because then you would need to go through some, depending on how steep it is, you either
Yep.
can't do anything or
Okay,
you have to comply with some other requirements.
It's still behind the garage than it is the house.
yeah.
We have two different slopes.
It has been suggested that we continue with the 5 criteria before the board peppers you with questions. Have you guys all in
Okay.
agreement about that? In the interest of efficiency, that might be best.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
so criteria number 1, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. We feel granting this variance will not be contrary to the public interest because it will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, nor will it threaten the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. I think those were, when I looked at some of the guidelines for how these are basically evaluated. And as to Michael's earlier question about altering the essential character of the neighborhood, I don't, right? It's opinion. I don't feel it will. It would basically be a small addition, basically about the size of the garage off the back of the garage. Wouldn't change the look from the street. There's already an existing driveway. It wouldn't have to add a new driveway. It's well wooded in that area, well separated from the neighbors to the east side. Any questions?
Okay, real quick. Am I correct that if it's built in the back of the garage, the neighbor across the street, the neighbor to your right, the neighbor to your left really wouldn't have a direct view of that
Correct.
addition? Okay, thank you.
Correct. Yep. Yep. Like I said, it is well wooded between us and Linda Leverett passed away last year. Next house over, up the road. And Woody and Cynthia here are neighbors on the opposite side. They don't have any view to that. And Olga across the street also. You know, it would basically a direct line of sight, so it wouldn't change the view from her property either. Spirit of the ordinance is observed. Since the new construction will not alter the rural characteristics of the neighborhood and would be within the current setback requirements, this location is also in the spirit of the ordinance. And I did speak earlier too about the spirit of the ordinance in terms of the ordinance allowing attached ADUs or ADUs more in general to improve housing in the community, housing options in the community. So in my opinion, it is within the spirit of the ordinance. Thoughts?
We're not voting on that yet, but
Yep.
yes, thank you.
Okay. Substantial justice is done. So denial of this variance would limit housing options for us as owners and not provide a gain to the general public. That's what I interpreted as substantial justice definition.
Well, it's two-pronged, actually. You can do it either way. Maybe I should just ask you what's the benefit to you by granting the variance?
So the benefit to us would be to, as I outlined later in the application, we're starting to look at long-term options for a caregiver for our youngest daughter who's severely disabled. She needs someone to monitor her 24/7, which we do. As we age and as she gets older, we want to be able to have someone nearby that would be able to assist us should emergencies occur. So that's the real value to us.
And even now, my elderly
Just for the recording, Carrie, can you speak into the microphone? Sorry, thank you.
And right now, my elderly parents are the ones who have been helping, and so she's getting bigger, and we need help with her, so that's
Okay,
kind
so
of in the spirit.
I'm glad you introduced that. So if I may, can you tell us a little bit about your family? All I know is when I go by the house, I see 6 cars there, and I still can't to this day figure out who's on first. So if you could just tell us a little bit about...
A little bit about our family. We are a family of over 19 if we're all together, like this coming weekend. But we have our 12-year-old who lives at home and will live at home with us forever. She's a forever child. We have one in graduate school and we have 2 in college. And we have my elderly parents who live with us. And right now we do look like a car lot because of kids coming and going. We've been in New Hampshire for over 30 years now. We came from Maine and up from the we were in the Upper Valley for college.
So my recollection is that's a 6-bedroom, 3.5-bath house, so you guys pretty well have it filled.
5 bedrooms.
It can be considered a 5-bedroom, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, one of those was a walk-through when I was a kid, so they got 6, but anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so you're pretty well filling the house.
The
Yeah.
house is filled, yes, yeah.
It will empty out, 2 and, they're basically essentially 3 in college, as
Yeah.
they transition
He says
out.
it'll empty out. Look at housing. It will not empty out. I will have all my children back home in 2 years because they will not have housing somewhere. So, yeah, we're a full house. So there is no.
And then we have two grown children and 5 grandchildren.
So that's why you see a lot of cars there.
Okay, and do both of you work outside the home?
No, I am Addie's caregiver. I work right now 57 hours as her caregiver. That's why I'm looking for some help also. 57 hours is a lot of time to be your child's caregiver. It doesn't give much time to be your child's parent.
Okay, so the carts that I see being pushed up and down the street loaded with little children are all yours? They're all the...
Well, those
Grandchildren.
are our grandchildren.
Grandchildren, okay.
Yes, yes. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And Ken works outside the home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thanks.
Hey, you're welcome. Any other questions on substantial justice?
To continue that line of questioning, then, you told me what the benefits were for you.
Yep.
If we grant this variance, what harm, if any, is there to the general public? Do you see any?
And I do talk a little bit about that, right? Harm to the general public, I don't see any harm to the general public. I mean, it won't threaten, safety or general welfare to the public. Right, the threat to the cumulative impact of granting this variance is something that obviously needs to be considered, and that's why, I outlined in the application why I feel that our lot topology and geography are unique to this particular situation and would basically limit the possibility of cumulative impact for granting a variance of this type.
All right, so as long as the benefit to you is greater than the harm to the general public, then your substantial justice argument is met.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Criteria number 4, values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. Each dwelling in the neighborhood is well separated. The value of each property is determined by the individual characteristics of the property itself. Additionally, the neighborhood has a nice diversity of properties, with substantial ranges in asset values based on property tax cards from 274 up to 1.4 million. So it's a nice diverse neighborhood, making, a relatively small change on part of this lot wouldn't impact the property values of the other houses on the neighborhood.
But you don't happen to have a letter from a realtor so stating? This is just your personal opinion? Yeah. It's not required. It's something that the board members can find based upon their own analysis, and we'll get to that. We're going to circle back to that in a minute.
Okay. And number 5, I've been told, is basically that the hardest obstacle here, and that the literal enforcement and provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. And obviously that's very subjective. But in my opinion, our opinion, the application of the requirements of the ADU to be attached deprives this property of its availability to have an ADU as outlined in the zoning variant, zoning permissions, due to its unique topography and terrain conditions. And I think that granting a variance with these considerations taken into account would limit, like I said, the risk of a cumulative impact. And unnecessary hardship is basically because of the lot conditions, topography, size, not having this option available for us as a family would make it very difficult for us to stay there. Because, finding caregivers is hard enough, and having the ability of, having someone close by and available to help us on an as-needed basis if our daughter has a seizure if she has one of her cyclic vomiting episodes, you know, it's
Well,
it's
I
hard.
don't want to interrupt you, but how's this all going to work? Tell me how this ADU fits into the plan.
So the
Who's it going to be used by? Who's going to be living there? How is this supposed to work, I guess is the question.
Yeah,
We kind of need to
Thank
know
you.
that.
So one of the caregivers that works with our daughter when she's available and she's going to be start working through a place called Community Bridges is my son's wife. And she has worked with Addie before. So she would be living there with Maxwell and his family, and she would be on call 24/7 to us as a family when we need help. As it stands now, like if Ken doesn't go on business trips anymore because she isn't someone that can be just left alone with one person. So unless one of our college-age kids are home, I can't be left home alone with her anymore. So I am her nurse, but Max's wife, my daughter-in-law, Emily, would work through Community Bridges, and she would be her part-time caregiver along with me. And my hopes, her hopes, I don't know, Max's hopes, is she would become an LNA, and then as I age, because right now 57 hours is a lot of hours for me, she would start taking over some of those hours, and she would be right there to provide care for our daughter. So that's how we see it working. And for us, I don't know if you've ever been in it, Michael, you've been on our road forever, so our house is not a flat house inside. It has steps. So right now, our plan is we're building an inside ramp because of the ledge. There's no way to make this one level house. And so our plans would be that the house or the unattached ADU that would be built is a one level, which would be better for her because now she uses a chair part-time or when she's not feeling well. In our house, that's a little difficult. So as she gets older, we would have that option of her being able to be with a caregiver in a unit with one floor like that. So that's how.
So the daughter would be living in the ADU with the caregiver?
As she gets
As she
older,
gets older, it
that
would
could be
more
an
than likely
option.
Not
Yep.
the caregiver we're looking at now.
Yeah, would
but a
not,
separate
a
caregiver.
separate caregiver. Right
paid
now,
provider
she can stay
caregiver.
at home. The caregiver would be my daughter-in-law, which could come to the house, but as she ages, it would be a unit for her and a caregiver to be able to live in.
So we're looking at how many bedrooms?
Just two.
Two. But right now,
Right, that's the current
That's
restrictions
strict,
on
yeah.
on an ADU is 2 bedrooms.
yeah, it would more, the way her bedroom is set up now, she doesn't need a bedroom because she needs to be so close. So it's just an area that can handle her equipment, her feeding equipment, her pulse, her seizure machines and stuff like that. So it's not even like a full bedroom because she needs to be with her caregiver. So like she's here and we're here.
So
So it would be.
So where is she? Is she in the master bedroom now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
With the full bath and then that she gets access to the living room and the sun porch, but she can't get up there's a step to
she
get to the
can.
back door, so she can't get up there.
She can being watched. She can never be
Yeah.
alone on the stairs and everything. That's why we're hopefully going to be building a ramp soon.
Yeah, but it's 2 steps everywhere else in that
Yeah.
house.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no level place in the house. And
Okay.
that was another option we had looked at is how could we redo the whole entire house? And there's just not that option where the house cannot be one.
Yeah,
One
mostly
floor.
because of the risk of seizures and falling.
Okay, Then the only other question I have is how you thought about transferring her from the ADU to the house? Would you need a walkway or a ramp or something? How would you accomplish that?
Well, she has a chair.
She has.
Oh,
So she can be
okay.
transported in it. And
Understood.
it's basically modified strollers. It's like a wheelchair.
Okay. All right. Have you anything more for us by way of the
I
application?
believe that outlines all 5 of the criteria for the variance. And I did add, as much as we've spoken about our family situation, if the board does not feel that these 5 criteria would meet the variance request, then we would also ask for consideration under RSA 674-33, which does state that the...
That's 674-33, Roman 5
Yeah,
is your
5.
exception.
Yeah.
And there's two observations about that, but go ahead, describe that for us, please.
Yep. So a variance can be granted without finding a hardship arising from the condition of premises uses subject to the ordinance, where reasonable accommodations are necessary to allow a person or persons with a recognized physical disability to reside in or regularly use the premises, is provided that a variance granted under this paragraph shall be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance, and granting any variance pursuant to this paragraph, the zoning board may provide, including findings including the variance, that the variance shall survive only as long as the particular, medication alarm, particular person is continuing to need to use the premises.
Right. So in other words, the variance, if granted under the conditions of this statute, has a timer on it.
As long
And at the
as,
conclusion of the use by the person for whom it was created, it goes away.
yes,
Great. Thank you.
yes.
Okay, so now we're at the point now where board members may ask the applicants any questions they wish and seek further explanation on any of the things that have been presented.
Shockingly, I have questions.
Steve, I'm surprised at you.
Okay, Steve, how about you let me go first before you start?
Go ahead.
So I have questions regarding the physical questions about so it's 2 bedrooms. The number of stories?
For the ADU,
For the
would be
ADU.
single level.
And a variance was granted for the property in 2012. What was that for?
That was, so my understanding is that someone from Massachusetts bought the house to flip it. They applied for a variance to add the little dormer off the front of the house, and their argument was for their elderly parents to be able to have wheelchair access to the house.
And
They wouldn't
They
go
put in-
far before they
they-
hit the stairs, I'll tell you that.
They put in a door that didn't meet ADA requirements, and so that they basically, as prior owners, they got the variance. And unfortunately, I think it was more to just make the house look better than,
And
So it wasn't
this is the entry that's on the front of the house that
Yes.
faces Old Main Street, and so that would have further reduced the setback to Old Main, and hence that's the variance. Yeah,
Yes.
That's my recollection.
yeah. Yeah.
do you know what the setbacks are now to the garage?
We measured about 35 feet to the front of the garage.
Okay.
Just
The
fine.
about bothers me personally.
Sorry, what does?
The about 35 feet. It'd be
Oh,
nice
okay.
to know.
Well, it's,
I can't tell you how many tax maps were used and they're wrong.
yeah.
So-
yeah. I took a tape measure from, about where we thought the edge of the road
Okay.
was.
But there's no decrease in the front yard or the side yard
No.
with
Correct.
this application.
Correct.
Now we'll get to the ledge. Adam, can you bring up the photos of the house in the back? So between and again, to about where the septic system is and about where the ledge is, I looked at it today. The house is tucked in there.
Yeah.
But the deck spans over the ledge. Has
Yeah.
anyone considered building the ADU that way, where the deck is, spanning that?
We did talk about that. I think one thing is we wouldn't meet the setbacks from
From Woody's
Woody's
lot.
house lot there.
Well, you would, if you, excuse me, I'm interrupting you.
Yeah, no,
but if that was the approved plan, you would be allowed to build the structure
Yep.
consistent with the current setback. In other words, I think you'd have to observe for the new
Okay.
construction what the
So-
setback should have been.
Yep, okay, so, the few things we thought about when we did think about that is, one, with the ledge, we're not sure how we would get water over there. We don't have any water on that side of the house. our bathrooms and everything are all on the other side of the house. It's a long ways to go if you come and visit us. So there would be that. That was one of the things we talked about. The other thing is parking. We already have the parking for us is there, so the parking then for that unit would need to be down at the garage.
Yeah.
So it would be, there
But,
isn't really
you know,
accessible
the
parking.
other thing is the roofs on the back of our house are very shallow as it is. Building a structure there would really raise the entire roof line of the whole house to get proper pitches for water runoff and everything.
Okay. So, and then Steve, you had mentioned building on ledge. Building on ledge is a lot more difficult than people make it out to be. If you follow the building code, you run the risk of damaging the house, the foundation that's there.
Right.
And you may go out as far as the deck is now. The footings required for the deck are minimal, but footings required for a house would be substantial.
Yeah.
And the ledge, you would have to have someone come out, analyze the ledge. Can you connect to it? It would be very restrictive, and I don't want to say impossible, but it would be quite a challenge.
That was our impression as well.
So, you had mentioned the variance that follows the use, and when the use is no longer needed, the variance is gone. Boy, that's a lot to build for something. And the other thing is, I don't mean to be callous here, but we have to remember that this goes with the property. If they decide next month to move, there's an accessory dwelling there.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that, but that's something for us to think about.
Yep.
And if I may elaborate on that, I think in the spirit of this particular provision of the statutes, it's easier to imagine a couple making an application to put an exterior stairway to provide access for an ADU under this, because when the use was no longer necessary, the stairway could be removed. And that's your reversion back to pre-variance status. This is a little different because we grant a variance, we get another whole structure detached from the house, and it was predicated on the care of a disabled person. Well, if that situation no longer presents itself, how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube? You see, this is what we have to think about. The house will change hands.
Yeah.
And so those are just things running through our minds.
How do you enforce that enforced? And right.
Yeah, which may or may not allow us to be able to make a decision tonight. We might need a little bit more input,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, but they can convert that to storage. There's so many things that you can do, garage, but it isn't, it's an expense that you're going to outlay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, that's why I think, really, first consideration is just the 5 criteria for the variance itself. And if that's not met, then, might think about the other option.
then, Stephen, did you want?
Thank you, yeah. You mentioned parking. Where do you plan on parking to be for the ADU?
It'd be-
Right at the garage.
Yeah, right in front of the
Okay,
garage.
so I'm going to suggest that your variance application is going to need a variance from the requirement for ADUs have parking not within the front setback, which is just an additional variance
To amend.
requirement we have here. This
You
is
need to amend the app, I guess.
Article 2, Section 18E, 10 in the whole B says parking can't be in the front setback.
There are other parking options. There's an access road that runs down beside the garage, and where the addition would be behind it, a parking area could be made down.
A parking area can be
Yeah.
made off to
Actually,
the side, too.
That's still
Steve, I would-
back.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt, but can't they park in the garage?
That's,
Garage is within the setback. Parking space can count
but it's an
in the
existing
garage.
use as a garage.
Right.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that our variance grant, if we grant a variance, we should include that if the plan is for parking to be where you have
It
existing
has
parking
to be
spaces.
amended to include that parking as part of the variance.
I agree with Adam. There's an existing garage. Yes, it's within the front yard, but, it's a garage use, so allow them to park there.
Yeah,
We can hash that out later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not arguing.
That's a
against that. I was
discussion
just
item, yeah.
So the other thing is that the ADU ordinance requires that there be an inside door. If we're granting a variance for a detached ADU, we're granting a variance for that inside door. requirement, so that we just need to touch bases on two things here.
Yes, we're going to be soliciting some drafts of this from you, so yes.
So,
Thank you.
a couple other questions, though. The neighborhood, we consider the character of the neighborhood. This neighborhood, and maybe Michael can weigh in, looks to me like it has a lot of houses and buildings that are actually in the front setback, which I'd like the record to reflect. Your lot and the one to your left, and then everything to your right, well, actually, you don't know what left or right is, but the one lot to the west, and then everything to the east is ARR, but the rest of it's R2, and it surprises me in looking at that zoning that they drew the line where they did,
Yeah.
because your lot looks like the other lots. And so,
Yeah.
in any event, it
Yeah.
is, a grandfathered, non-conforming use.
Yeah.
One other,
Steve, can I jump
ahead.
in on one point you made? Or
yeah, please do.
so under 18DE, with the written requests for waivers from any of the requirements or standards, because it's a conditional use permit, I think that the interior door and the parking could be handled through the waiver request of the site plan review of the conditional use permit at the planning board.
Okay.
We can choose to make that a condition.
No.
Right, I mean, and that's the definition of the ADU here is really where the requirement that it be attached come from up
Sure,
above
yeah.
there. And so I think those standards under E can be waived then without variance as part of a conditional use permit from the
Okay.
innovative land use controls. So I think
Okay,
we
if
could.
you're confident in that, then,
I mean, I would love other people to take a look and give me their opinions too, but.
just read me the words real quick.
Sure. So it's under the creation of accessory dwelling unit. And so it says a conditional use permit application shall contain the following, and then E, written requests for waivers from any of the requirements or standards.
Okay, could they do a waiver request for a detached ADU?
I don't believe so because the definition of the ADU defines it as attached.
Okay, all right. Adam, that's
Only
why
way
we
they can
pay
get
you
a
the big
det-
bucks.
The only way to get the detached ADU is with a variance,
Okay,
which is why we're here. Any,
Too, because it has to have a separate entrance facing. I think there's one other thing too, because you need a separate entrance
No.
facing the side or back,
Yes.
which in inclement weather, I'm not sure how you're moving people around.
We have a road that goes down beside the garage already.
So with the building off the back, there would be, the side door would be basically on the same level as the garage, and either a deck or stairs that would lead
Like
from
right
that
there on the
area
corner, yeah.
to the side entrance for the ADU.
But as you look at moving your daughter and caregiver in the winter, as shifts change, et cetera, you've got a bit of transport you're going to have to be dealing
That
with.
transport, if you're asking for a separate, could be right through the garage, because there's the front picture of the garage there, there's the door. There's going to be an entrance into the apartment through the garage. So say you're parking in the garage, which would be fabulous, you could get her right out of the car and right in through that door.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is one spot that the planning board has taken the waiver requests for. We had a new construction home that put an ADU in that the entrance was actually the family's common mudroom, and you walked into a single common area, so it really was the same front door as the house. But that is an example of where we did use the waiver situation.
further questions or discussion by any of the board members?
How many bathrooms? Just one? Or
Just one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have questions, but it would be for the neighbors. I'd like to hear what they have to say when you open this up.
Yeah, certainly. Peter, you were looking like you might have a question. No? No? You good? Okay. I believe then, if the board members have nothing more to ask of the applicants, then we would turn it over to the members of the gallery. If any of you have any questions of the applicants regarding this variance application, now is the time to step up to the microphone, identify yourselves for the record, and ask away. Don't be shy.
Good evening. Peter Nichols, citizen of New London and also on the Housing Commission in New London. I think you may have a sense of what I'm going to say. I'm not speaking with the authority of the Housing Commission, though I am the chairman. But I would like to say that if there is a poster to be made for approving a variance for detached ADUs, this would be one of them. I know that you have the 5 criteria to go through and your deliberation is important and you're protecting the town's best interests, which I respect immensely. But I would encourage you to think of this personal need and also the need for workforce housing. This is a caretaker in our community, another perhaps family that become good citizens and help our town to grow in the way it needs to grow. So please give it careful consideration, and I would encourage your approval.
That is, thank you, Peter. And that's workforce housing with a small w, by the way. We sometimes confuse ADUs and workforce housing, capital or small w, and we need to keep everything straight here. This is an ADU application. But I understand what the point that you're making.
Yes, I was not looking for a capital W.
Thank you, Peter. Honestly, looking at this property, the only neighbor that may be impacted, but even slightly, would be across the street. So I don't know who that neighbor is and if they're here.
That would be Mrs. Scow, and I don't see her here.
Okay.
Woody, did you want to say something? Woody Canada? He was the neighbor to the west.
Thank you. We are immediate neighbors. We abut the Woods' property on 2 sides. We are in support of the proposal. It seems reasonable. It seems well put together for meeting the required criteria. So just wanted to let the zoning board know that we are on board with what they are proposing to do.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
So my only concern.
Do you want to start discussion? Anyone else have any observations or comments or questions of any of the board members or the applicants from the gallery? Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to discuss. No?
I'd like to make a point that they may need to respond to.
Oh, all right. Please do.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Diagram's great. It gets right to it. But we're going to make a decision on this nice color. It'd be nice to have...
Not to scale drawing.
Yeah. It'd be nice to have something from a survey that identifies where the ledge is, where the septic is, and to be able to say, we grant that the hardship is, this is the only place they can put it. This is what differentiates this property from the neighboring properties.
You're exactly right. The hardship criteria requires you to explain to us the physical characteristics of this lot that make the application of the ordinance to you a manner which deprives you of reasonable use of the property. It's got to be a description of the physical characteristics of that lot, some of which we know by personal experience. I do. I lived in that house for years, grew up in the house, skinned my knees on that rock before it was covered by the lovely deck they have now, countless times. But not all the board members may be that familiar. So what I'm going to propose is that I'm not going to require that you produce a survey, but I don't know what will happen downstream from this. Other committees or agencies you may go before might require something a little more detailed than this. However, in lieu of that, something that may help us to make a decision would be for the voting members of the board and the alternate to view the site, if that's amenable to you.
Absolutely.
All right. You've already done that.
Yeah, so would you happen to have a copy of the approved septic system?
No.
Is it something you can obtain?
Excuse me?
Is it something that you can obtain?
We can certainly look in the town files for the septic system.
Sorry, Ann. Because
Sometimes
instead of
we have
us-
them.
Instead of delaying them another month,
Wouldn't be a month, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, even 2 weeks, if we had that evidence, obviously we can see the ledge. And it would be nice to know where the septic system is. And therefore, we have enough information that we don't need to go on site.
The state does have an archive of subsurface systems, so that is searchable.
Is this
You know
something we can do now?
Age of the system?
No.
Ideally, if it's post-1960-ish, we have them in the property files at the town office, so we can look. I'm not going to guarantee that we have everyone between 1960 and now, but we can certainly try to pull those files tomorrow. Sometimes it's just the approval of operation. It doesn't actually include the plan that was approved, but we can certainly help to find those. And then I know we hear complaints occasionally that archives takes a bit to get them at DES, so if we can get them faster, we can certainly do that.
The existing septic or the new proposed?
The existing.
Okay.
So basically what's happened is you have a house and it's limiting you to add to it because of the septic system and the ledge that's there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much, you have no choice here. You can connect it to the garage or build it somewhere else. I think connecting it to the garage is the least amount of impact visually.
I guess, so what you're suggesting, Frank, is that the complexities of this lot can properly be appreciated by the members of the board without paying a personal visit. I'm not sure that's the case, but
Yeah,
that's just my personal opinion.
I'll leave that up to you guys. I want everyone to be comfortable. We can go. I can go through the 5 criteria. The first 4 I see no issue. This has no impact on the neighbors. The value of the properties, I don't think that's even going to.
No, that's all your opinion. That's
Yeah.
fine. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good discussion.
But the one that's always the most difficult is the, let's call it the uniqueness of the property.
Correct. And I guess, I think the board members might be better able to, if they're not so convinced, to see the uniqueness of the property with a site visit. And I would propose that we schedule the site visit. We are going to vote on this, of course, but I would propose we would schedule the site visit for 2 weeks at 4 p.m. and then reconvene the meeting at 6 p.m. that night, continue the discussion, make a decision then.
6:30.
6:30, sorry. 6:30 then.
What is the date?
October 1st, I believe. Would that not be right?
I can't make it.
In which case, we could have this alternate that's not participating tonight serve in your stead, provided Ann didn't return, because he'd already been here through the discussion, and we could put a vote that way.
And again, my personal feeling is that if we're provided with evidence that there is a septic system there, they've provided us the photos, I've seen the property, pretty comfortable with that. But again,
Not everyone has.
right,
Yeah.
If I may, I'm sort of with Frank, although the question is, are you comfortable with a variance based on the 5 criteria or on the disability provision? And in my view, I think there's a pretty decent case here on the 5 criteria.
Right. So then what I'm going to do now is entertain a motion to discuss.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we discuss. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none. We are in discussion mode, which means we take no input from the gallery. Well, you haven't passed, but we're not supposed to, generally. But anyway, so now we are open to discuss on the record among ourselves the 5 criteria as presented by the applicants. And Frank has already alluded to the initial part that...
Yeah, so this is why I hate these vague applications. We're going to have contingencies, what do you call it? I already have conditions. I have 5 conditions already. I'll make it 6, the square footage, limit the square footage, limit the number of bedrooms, limit the number of stories, the inside door, the parking in the garage, and what we need is, at some point, they have to provide to Adam some sort of verification that says, there's a septic system here. Have a surveyor go out there and do it, pull up the original septic design, even pictures of a mound, something.
If I may, I do have some personal knowledge there, having lived there. The septic system, the leach field,
Yeah.
if I can see the
I'm getting there. You can see.
Let me see the overhead, the one with the little colored boxes on
The boxes.
boxes.
Roll
Yeah.
it up.
The overhead view.
If I may,
Schematic.
with Frank's point, I think what would be helpful, where I think you're going, is getting the evidence for the 5 hardships. So it would be helpful where I did not live there and I don't have the historical background there, but if we had an idea of the septic system and even the feasibility of building with the ledge, with a professional opinion, I think that would be helpful to understand and overcome that 5th criteria and stay within that bound so you don't get to the subsequent one, which would not run with the property, which could have economic concerns down the line for you. But I think the evidence there would be helpful for the board and for.
Well, it's not just us, but what if one of the neighbors who's not here decides to appeal?
I agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Frank, as far as the size and the bedrooms, is there a reason you don't feel like the criteria that they would be held to when they come to the planning board with the bedrooms and the bathrooms is appropriate?
No, you make a good point. It's limited to 1,000 square feet. It's limited to 2 bedrooms. I would like to add that it's 1 story. Therefore, it's not an impact on the neighbors visually. And that's up to you. I don't, again, I don't, now that I said it out loud, I don't
So-
think it matters at all to the neighbors.
Can I ask a question about the design? So the ridge line of the proposed ADU that's added on the back of the garage, would that be perpendicular to the present ridge line? Great. So it would be the same height as the present ridge line, simply carried aft?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to the, I'm sorry. Going back to the septic system. The leach field is presently in this area here, and of the 3.5 baths, the first floor master bedroom bath, lavatory, and the basement full bath are pumped down to this corner of the house, and there's a lift pump that lifts the septic up to the tank, which is in front of the house, and that drains into the leach field. The western end of the leach field is incredibly steep. I drove a lawn tractor over there once and jumped off just before it went down over the bank. It is very steep, and it's confined specifically to this little area here because, as they stated, there is an access road down through here. There is also an access road that peels off, that turns right around here and gets over to that access door to the basement where the pump is. So they're limited. They're confined by these roadways that go here and this big level mound with the steep backdrop on the backside. If they had to replace that leach field, I'm not sure how they would do it. I don't know. And down here is a granite quarry in this section. So that's not good drainage either. So it's a hard lot. It really is a hard lot. And I'm not sure how you guys can all appreciate that without walking the property and taking a look. That was all I was going to say.
So, Michael, I agree with you. I just think we need to have something that states that other than this nice diagram the owners put together.
Okay, are you going to require a survey?
No, I would want either the septic, based on what you told me, that was not put together willy-nilly. Someone designed that.
Oh, indeed.
So there's got to be somewhere, someplace, something that has a drawing of it. I would take information from a septic company that comes over and says, you're right, here's the septic system, and shows us a photo. Some sort of evidence that we can put in the file.
Would you be able to produce their burden, but do we have something that would...
So we will certainly look in the file to see if we can put our hands on the septic plan. As far as when they go to the planning board, they will need to produce the approved plan for the ADU. So it may also make sense to contact a septic designer now if if that looks like that's a future step in the next process. So I think we can conduct both of those things simultaneously and see what we can get our hands on.
So we can talk about, do we want to restrict the height? But what I would want is when they're ready to either go to the planning board or file for a zoning compliance permit, that they provide this information to Adam. If they don't have it, then they have to come back to us.
So Frank, on the height restriction, are you thinking for the portion within the front yard setback that it's not expanded, or entirely that they would be held to something less than the 35 feet allowed by right?
You know what? I'll ask the board members. Does that height have any impact on the other criteria? I don't think it's going to have effect on the value of the neighboring properties. I think it's still within.
What is, excuse me, on the topography behind the garage, that doesn't look flat at all. So how much is that dropping down for that far wall?
It drops a little bit more shallow there. The road there is actually drivable. Basically off the back of the leach field would not be drivable. So it is a little bit more gentle to that side of the lot than where our house is.
Well, before we go any further, does anyone have any interest in restricting the height of the building?
I thought the building was going to be restricted or limited to the present existing height of the gable
Okay.
roof ridge of the garage. I thought that was the general idea.
But do we want to make that a condition?
We could.
How does everyone feel?
You better.
Yes, I think we should.
Yeah, and looking at the garage, I think that's a reasonable condition, and I don't think it's going to be difficult because they're looking for a
No.
one-floor
Should
design
we-
anyway.
Should it be something to the fact that the new roof or the new addition will not be any higher than the existing ridge?
That would do it, I believe. Anybody else have any discussion or comments or on any of the other 5 criteria?
I would just say for that condition, we should make it specific if the structure is continually used as a ADU, because if at some point in the future, the use of an ADU is abandoned and this becomes an accessory structure, I don't think we would hold them to a lower height that an accessory structure could be built there up to 35 feet as the ordinance allows. So I think if we're going to limit the height to something less than 35 feet, it needs to be directly tied to the structure's use as an ADU.
So you make a good point. I think what we should do is not even refer to it as the ADU. Anything that's within the setback can be no taller than what's there, and anything beyond that can meet the current requirements.
That
If it becomes something else, it's,
So-
why restrict the rest of
so-
the building when it can be?
So what you're saying then is the ridge line of the new ADU starts at the ridge line of the garage. It
Or
goes,
lower, yeah.
it goes 15 feet, and once it gets to 15 feet, 15 and 35 is
Then it goes
50,
higher
then
than
it can
one.
shoot up another 35 feet.
Because
Or-
again, in the future, the house may not be yours, and if someone wants to use it for something else, I don't want them restricted to.
Fine, I say we limit it to the garage roof, the existing height of the garage for aesthetic purposes, and later on, when the other owner comes along and they want to build something bigger on the back, let them come before the zoning board and let them raise the roof.
No, I'd like to keep it that it's no higher within the setback.
I agree, though, with the, I
why
hate to
make
disagree
that
with you,
harder?
Frank, but I think that we're considering the visual effect from the across-the-street neighbor. If this is an ADU, I would support a restriction at the height of the garage. If it ceases to be an ADU, then, they
Let
can,
them
they can
come
do what they
before.
want, but they'll have their setback requirements.
So am I hearing you guys to say that you do not think it's necessary to take a visual look at the property to find hardship based on the characteristics of the lot?
Yes.
You guys are all good. You guys are all good with what's been presented, and not to scale diagrams and the photographs, you, and maybe perhaps personal knowledge, you're all comfortable with the fact that they have exhibited and put before this board sufficient facts to sustain a finding of hardship based on that description of the lot. If you're not, it's okay, we can go do a site view, but if everybody's all right with
But I
it.
think there was a condition of the septic, some idea of the septic and where it is.
I tried to give you that, but
Yeah,
I mean, we could resolve that issue.
But we can't put you in the file. As much as we
Understood.
want to, yeah.
So do you want to go look at it or not?
No,
Do you want to meet over there and take a walk or not?
Actually, though, I will say that in Housing Appeals Board reviews, knowledge of the members of the board counts, and you've suggested that you've lived in that house? Is that my understanding?
I lived in it for years, yeah.
Yeah. and-
When they were trying to sell it.
Is the septic leach field where they're showing it, to your knowledge?
Well, they're not showing it.
The blue,
Can't see it.
it's the,
The blue. It's like a swimming pool,
yeah, the
but
gray area.
Well, that would be,
There is ledge.
it's approximate, it's approximate. but
This
I'll
goes
tell
back
you-
to what I said before. It's approximate.
Right.
But if,
There were
I know where the ledge is, I can see it,
Yeah.
but it'd be nice to have some sort of documentation that there's a septic system there. We don't need a
Yeah,
survey.
it would be.
Right, and that can be provided by the file, bingo.
Yeah.
So,
So to go
everyone,
back,
are we ready to vote?
to go back to your original question, do the board members feel that we need to go there?
Yeah, what do you think? Do you think we need to take a walk over there or not?
Do we want to vote on
It's a
it?
lovely lot, it's a lovely street,
Are there, let me just.
and
pull
then
up
we
the
will,
new-
then we will adjourn from there, come here, complete the discussion, take a vote. That'll give us some time to draft the conditions that we want and get the language the way we want in anticipation of a vote.
So, Michael, I would tell you that I'd be willing to approve at this point.
Okay.
But part of that is that I'm not going to be available tonight. And I believe they have demonstrated hardship if the septic system is in the way and they can't build out that way. But I can trust the other members if you'd like to view it. I was thinking before, as I was reviewing this today, that I would have liked to have seen the site. So I take that as a valid point. So that's my view. I hate to give up my vote. That's the problem.
Understood.
I am not available on October 1st at 4 o'clock.
You're not available. All right.
I can go a different time.
Okay, so Peter and Lauren, and you're all set, because you went over there today. How about you, Heidi? You've been by the place enough times,
Yeah, I went by this afternoon.
and probably been to countless New Year's Day milk punch parties there. Yeah, but we're not going to go there, and under the previous ownership, but yes. All right, are you guys ready to put a vote here?
Yes, but I have a list of conditions.
All right,
So
let's
can
go
I
through
suggest
them.
one to add as well? That a condition be added that the applicant must seek conditional use permit for the accessory dwelling unit from the planning board? Just, I mean, it should happen anyways, but I think to make it clear that that's the
Yes.
next step.
Okay, so Frank, why don't you take your conditions seriatim, and we'll go through them and
Ready?
see that,
I
make
just
sure
have
we're all
scribbles.
clear on what you want to add. Because
Uh,
it will be dictated and transcribed,
Okay.
and we want to make sure we have it right.
So the first being, the easiest one being the conditional use permit from the planning board, that they obtain that. The next being to restrict the height to no higher than the existing ridge that's there. And the parking in the inside door, is that part of the conditional use? Or do we want to make a condition with that?
I'm satisfied with Adam's answer that they can seek a waiver
Okay.
from the planning board. The planning board will have a pretty good hint that we knew about that and granted the variance, that we're pretty much okay with that.
And then the next being, we need some sort of, not some sort, the next being that we need evidence of the location of the septic system, that it restricts the construction of the accessory dwelling attached to the house.
That, right, to the effect that the location of the existing septic system for the main house is in the way of a proposed location of an ADU, which requires it to be added to the back of the garage with its own system.
Thank you.
Can we delegate that condition to Adam to make the determination? I mean, he's going to dig it out of the files. We don't need another meeting.
I
It's up to-
don't know, though. I mean, technically, that's a condition subsequent that I think you would have to approve.
I think Adam is,
I'm trying to think of a
If you're-
different way to say it
Yeah.
so that it's not an approval required of it, but if you say,
no, I think we just want evidence that the septic system is located where they've shown it.
but I think if we say it clearly enough that,
Yeah.
providing.
But
that-
then our vote doesn't have the sufficiency of that evidence.
It's made without that evidence. It's made without, yeah, it's made with a presumption. It is not made with evidence before the board.
So the
Does this
condition would-
does this aerial image help at all with the septic? I did pull it up, and I thought that when I was at your house that there was a septic. Like, isn't there a clean out thing in your? Was it this? I didn't know if this would.
I'm not aware of any
No, okay.
clean-out manholes or anything to that effect, or vent stacks or anything that indicate that there's presence of a leach field. I just know that's where it is because I saw him
Right.
put it in. And it's 30 years ago, so you guys could be looking at,
Well, I mean, I think to Steve's point there, though, then that the Housing Appeals Board has looked to board members' personal knowledge of the property. So then I think you could say that you have a board member who has personal knowledge of watching the septic be installed, if he's willing to attest to his recollection. I mean, that could be, I mean, obviously that's up to the rest of you to decide whether that's sufficient, but
I know, looking at the property, there's no other place to put a septic system.
nope, right. They
But I-
had, that's why they had to pump it back up to the front
Yeah.
tank and then run it into the leach field.
It, again, would be good to have something in the file that says, here is the leach field. A septic inspector, a septic designer, a surveyor, the original
So,
septic design,
If-
some sort of
if-
evidence.
If we absolutely have to have that, we have to continue the hearing. That's all there is to it, till we have that evidence in the file. So if that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do. How about a week? How long is it going to take you to find that thing?
well, I mean, ideally 2 minutes tomorrow morning.
Okay,
but
so,
who knows?
so why can't, we don't have to reconvene in 2 weeks, do we? As long as it's a date certain, we don't have to renotice all the abutters.
That's correct. However, I would say with this space, it's somewhat risky. We don't have the calendar here to know what other private groups have the space reserved,
I see.
whereas
It's going forth.
every other Tuesday night is reserved for us.
Understood. Understood.
Unfortunately, it doesn't sound ADA accessible.
Do you have the calendar, Lynn? Are you digging for the,
No, we don't have access of it outside of the building.
uh-oh.
What can we do?
I mean, is the septic, if the septic were not there, the ledge is still there, correct? I mean, the ledge
No.
is still the restricting,
You can see the ledge in the front, ledge in the back.
Ooh, you had an overhead
back to the
photo? Yeah, go back to that overhead photo. That looks pretty good.
The nice green area is where the leach field is,
This leach field, yes, that's right. This leach field is right here.
which is why it's green.
so does that provide you the confidence you're looking for?
I am going to tell you just Michael's, I would like something for the file, but Michael's experience is,
Oh, you're going to hang me out on a limb?
no,
Is that what you're going to do?
you went out there.
I went out there.
I would really like confirmation. I think this is a pretty big decision, and I think it's important to have something in the file.
All right, so now we're looking at
Sorry,
continuing, I understand.
No,
Thank you,
that's why I
thank you,
brought
Heidi,
it up.
thank you for that. So then we need to continue this to a date certain. What are the options for dates? Knowing that 2 of our members will not be available on October 1st.
At 6:30, they're not available, or
I'm not available.
all day?
Well, Conrad can't be here 4, but he can be here at 6. That's
Well,
why-
we don't have to,
6:30.
we don't have to visit the site on the same day we have the hearing.
Right.
The problem being that they can't vote because, that's right,
Well, we don't have to visit the site.
can we continue it to, we can't continue it to a week because we don't have a meeting room? That, what I'm hearing?
No, next week's planning board meeting on Tuesday night. How quickly do you think you could meet? Because I know we have it reserved from like 5:30 on for the planning board. If you thought that this was going to be a 30-minute meeting and you could vacate in time for the planning board to start, I think we could make that work.
Well, that's about the only thing we're looking at, is a drawing. And that would satisfy Heidi's concern, something in the file confirming the design and location of the system. That's all we need. I'm not aware that we need anything else. We have the conditions. Everybody seems to be happy with all the other criteria. We'd be ready to receive that into the file and then take a vote.
Are we thinking 5 o'clock?
I will just say this for the record. One time, the planning board met
But it could-
out on the sidewalk and had a quorum and took a vote. Perfectly legal.
Yeah.
Yeah, a half hour is going to be fine.
Yeah.
So I know that I believe the water precinct just scheduled a meeting here on Tuesday afternoon. So I believe that's at 1:30 or 2 o'clock. So they should be out of here by 4:30, 5 o'clock. So if we did 5:30 next Tuesday, does that work for folks? I think that gives us enough of a window between their meeting, getting out, and having enough time before the planning board. Does
This only works if you turn.
does that work for you guys?
Yeah, maybe Ken's clear on this. So I just want to make sure it's clear. If there isn't something that you can find, Adam, are you guys fine with coming over and being, there's their leach field? Or then are we going to need to have somebody come and say, there's their leach field?
Yeah, I would be comfortable if a septic inspector came and said, here's your leach field.
Okay.
A surveyor, good luck getting one in
No,
a
that's
couple of
okay.
days.
I just want to make sure that if Adam can't find it, that we have enough time to get somebody there, because visually isn't going to do, it seems like. Okay?
I don't want to get personal, but I presume you've pumped your tank since in the last 6 years?
Oh, gosh, yes, we pump it every year. I can show you where the hole is.
So do I. So, yeah,
Yeah.
so there's your guy,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
He's on the payroll, so you can,
Yeah,
hopefully
we'll
you
be
can
able
get
to
him up
do
there to
that.
point that
Okay.
out.
All right.
Yeah, that might be a solution.
Would you just need a letter from them for
Would a letter, I can't see. I can't
letter,
see
a
what-
diagram?
A letter, a diagram, something, even if they took their aerial photograph and took a marker and said, here it is.
Okay.
And stated who they are,
Okay.
what they do.
Signed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I have an 8 o'clock site visit tomorrow morning, so Jen will be at the office before I am. So when she gets to the office at 8, she can get into the property file, see what she has. If it's there, it's 8:10. We should be able to call and tell you that we have it. And then
Okay.
at that point, you would not necessarily need to contact your septic pumper, correct? Okay. So by 8:30, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, hopefully we would have an answer for you as to whether or not we have.
Then you may have to call your guy, or you may not, as the case may be. All right. So we have a date certain?
Just for the record, I can't be here next Tuesday either. I got vacation scheduled. What can I do?
Can you vote absentee?
Yeah, no, you can't. But that's why we have alternates, so.
So 5:30 on the 24th.
5:30 on the 24th. So I will entertain a motion to continue this hearing. Hello? Oh, I'm sorry, Janet, I didn't realize you wanted to say something. You may.
Just in the
Please,
microphone.
come, step up, and you don't need an introduction. Go ahead and tell us what.
Janet Kidder, I'm on the Select Board, and I'm the representative to the Planning Board. I think since the town of New London voted down detached ADUs, you should have everything lined up for this. There shouldn't be any questions. So if anybody looks at this, I'm not saying it shouldn't happen, but I think you need,
Paper
I think
file.
Frank's right, that you should have the diagram for the for the sewer system. Okay?
I
That's all I
agree.
had to say.
No argument.
Absolutely, because you're right. We can all
They're
agree
gonna look
upon
at
this, and it takes one person to appeal it. And then,
Yes, we can all find ourselves out of a job. All right. So, Mr. Alternate, are you available on the new continued to date of 1 week? Sorry, I'm pointing at you.
Tuesday, the 24th at 5:30 at Whipple Hall. And potentially, I'll let Ann know too, the convenience of recording this is that she gets to watch the proceeding, whether she was here or not.
You are available, great. So if Stephen is on a plane, you can be the second alternate, presuming Ann is still out. She managed to get COVID, poor thing. She's blaming the voting, but I don't know if, well, knock on wood. Okay. All right, are we ready to entertain that motion to continue to the date certain as specified?
yes.
All right, entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Moved and seconded by Stephen Root. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. This hearing is continued to the date certain of 1 week from today for the limited purposes of obtaining a diagram on the septic. At that time, we will enter it into the file and conduct our vote. Thank you all for your patience and understanding. Now, the other item, minutes. We have, the rest of it is just administrative procedures by the board, so you are welcome to be excused from that if you wish.
Thank you.
Can't even read this. Oh, we have two
Ken?
sets of minutes.
Ken?
Need-
What's the best number to call you guys at first thing in the morning? Is there a, just, let's see if it's, I was going to say if it's on your, oh, I don't know,
And
cover sheet.
we yours.
If you want to just write at the bottom there, whatever. the
Believe
list
me.
is, that would be good. Thank you. Just want to make sure we get it to you timely.
So we have two sets of minutes that need to be approved, and I'm going to presume that you've all read them. If not, we can simply approve them at this meeting that we've just continued for 1 week. So are you all in a position to vote on the minutes of the prior two meetings? You abstain. All right. All the rest of us ready to vote on those minutes? Anyone have any corrections or
I don't think we can vote on the ones on the 2nd because that's on July 2nd because Heidi and Michael and Ann and Julia were the only ones there, so we don't have a quorum of the people who were actually here for that one.
So we are limited to the minutes on the date of
The June the 4th.
June the 4th. All those in favor of the minutes
Yep, those will be for next week.
on June 4th as recorded signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes of June 4th are approved. We will continue this second set of minutes, July, until we have the requisite members who were present.
Right, correct. Both
Yes.
July minutes will be on the website and ready for next Tuesday.
All right, so we'll pass over those July 3rd or
Second
2nd
and
meeting
19th.
minutes, and we'll vote on them at a later time. Any other business? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No? Boom, we are adjourned.